And we're back, and I have the distinct pleasure of bringing on United States Congressman O'Rourke and some of the area that he represents in his hometown, near downtown in El Paso. Welcome, United States Congressman O'Rourke. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You just got off a summit that Filemon Vela, the congressman down here from the Valley and South Texas, reaching up all the way to DeWitt County, he had. Tell us a little bit about your district, Congressman.
Well, I represent most of El Paso County, which, along with Ciudad Juarez, forms the largest true binational community in the world. And as you know from visiting El Paso, our two communities literally interconnect: the street grids, the families, the people, the culture, the languages. It's really a special, almost magical place, and a place that shares a lot in common with the Rio Grande Valley, with the border in Southern California and Arizona. So to be able to work with somebody like Congressman Vela, who's able to convene a meeting of border reps who really want to change the dynamic when it comes to the border, to view the border and our relationship with Mexico as not a source of anxiety or fear, but instead one of opportunity, job creation, and economic growth. We in El Paso know that we've got a friend here in the Rio Grande Valley in Congressman Vela, and so we're just really glad to be part of the conference or the summit that he was able to convene today.
Tell us a little bit about what the present situation is on the border there, and the myths and the facts.
You know, the myths that prevail in Washington, D.C. See Mexico as a source of drugs and illegal immigrants and people who want to take our benefits and our jobs. The reality that we know is that last year, net migration from Mexico was zero. When you take into account everyone who came over, everyone who came back, it netted out at zero. And yet there's a proposal that passed the Senate to militarize the border, spend $46 billion to build 700 more miles of walls, double the Border Patrol yet again from 20,000 to 40,000, and militarize through defense armaments and equipment a part of the world that 6 million U.S. citizens live in, from San Diego to Brownsville. So we have a responsibility and an opportunity to change that dynamic, and following Congressman Vela's lead, talk about the jobs, 6 million jobs in the United States that depend on U.S.-Mexico trade. Talk about the great positive impact that immigrants have in our community. El Paso, the city I have the honor of representing, is the safest city in the United States today. It was last year, it was the year before, and that is not in spite of, but I think because of the large immigrant population that we have there. These are folks who want to work hard, get ahead, do better for their children, make their communities safe. So we've got a very positive story to tell from the border, and again, it's just an honor to have this chance to do this in the U.S. Congress and to work with great people like Congressman Vela, who I was joking earlier, he really inspires fear in Congress, and not just from people who see things differently than he does, but from allies like myself who know that Vela is not someone to go along to get along. He wants to get something done, and you are going to be a little disruptive in doing that, but he has jump-started the conversation on a positive view of the border and about what the border has to offer the rest of the country.
Well, and the other issue that he brought out, and I think you did most poignantly, was the marriage. Can you tell the audience about that story that you shared over there at the summit about an hour ago here at South Padre? Can you tell them about that marriage situation that I think will really touch and captivate what the immigration issue is all about?
Week before last, I had the chance to attend a wedding at the Paso del Norte International Bridge that connects downtown Ciudad Juarez and downtown El Paso. And the marriage was between Edgar Falcon, a constituent of mine, U.S. citizen, and his wife from Durango. And the marriage literally took place at the international line that joins the United States and Mexico. He on the U.S. side, she on the Mexican side. Because she has a lifetime ban of reentry into the United States, because as a juvenile, as a child, her sister falsely claimed citizenship for Edgar's fiancée. And we have in response to situations like these that are really heartbreaking, we've filed a bill to allow judges discretion in ruling on these cases. Right now, there's an automatic lifetime ban for false claims of citizenship, for multiple reentries illegally. And in some cases, that may be the appropriate punishment. However, in many other cases, and certainly we see those in Laredo and Brownsville, McAllen and El Paso, we're separating families. We're separating people who love each other, who want to raise their children together. We talk so much in Congress about family values. These are people who exemplify family values. And so let's not allow a broken immigration system to keep them apart. So, and in talking to folks here in Port Isabel this morning, I was given several other anecdotes of people who've seen those international weddings or families who are separated. Our current system of immigration laws is badly broken. I think almost everyone in the country can agree on that. It's separating families. It's not allowing us to realize our true capacity as a country to really increase economic growth and create jobs. Look forward to working with your congressman and the others who are here today to change that.
Well, and I thank you for introducing yourself over to our viewers in Corpus Christi, San Patricio County, and all around the South Texas area. But the other thing, for your constituents out there in El Paso, we're going to be putting this on YouTube, and anything you'd like to tell your constituents right now?
You know, I want the folks in El Paso to know that I was in San Diego last week. I'm here in the Rio Grande Valley this week. We're going to be traveling to Arizona in the coming week. We have allies all throughout the border who see the border as we do, an opportunity and not a threat. And I've actually had the pleasure of seeing your show before actually meeting you today. And I want to thank you for your advocacy and shining a national spotlight on the positive dynamics of the U.S.-Mexico border. So we appreciate what you do.
I appreciate it. And thank you, Congressman O'Rourke. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to be back after this break.
Have you been arrested or are potentially facing criminal charges? You need a trial attorney who is well-versed in the courtroom. Joe Flores has handled hundreds of criminal cases and many of them to trial. Joe Flores can provide you with competent representation to protect your constitutional rights in state and federal court. Joe Flores can help if you have been arrested or facing criminal charges. The law offices of Joe Flores, equal justice for all.
And we're back after a brief break, and I'm honored again to be with United States Congressman Crowley. How are you?
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us back again. And listen, I always tell people and my viewers I talk too much, so I'm going to let you take the floor. Tell me a little bit about your district, what you're doing right now, and the bipartisan support on some initiatives you're making.
Well, it's great to be down here, as I said before, in South Texas to help my friend Phil Monvella. Phil's doing a great job as a freshman. You know, it's not easy to make a mark, but he's already doing that in many ways. And to be down here just to see what his district is like is important to me, to get a sense of what my colleagues are dealing with as well. A border state like Texas and a border district, literally, that Phil has, it's important for us, I think, to get that perspective. And working in Congress, it's more and more difficult, I think, to have a bipartisan approach. And not to offend any listening Republicans, but in particular, I think within the Republican Party itself, there's almost like a civil war going on politically. And that's also, I think, added to the dysfunctionality of the Congress. And there's not really the ability to get things done the way in which we were able to do when I first started, things I witnessed. I remember going into, as a freshman, into the chair of the Transportation Committee chairman, and wheeling and dealing at that early stage of my career for my district, and that doesn't happen anymore. There's not that give and take, and you help me if I think constituents understood if you voted for something that helped out of the district, they understood that in the past. There's less understanding of that give and take that has to take place in the legislative body, and I hope at some point we get back to legislating, compromising, working together on behalf of the country.
Well, and let me ask you this: has the the effect, or the as President Obama called it, the shellacking of the Democratic Party in many areas in 2010, and then you kind of had a bounce back in 2012. What is the effect of the Tea Party and other libertarians having on this back and forth between the two parties?
As I said, I think the real battle is taking place internally within the Republican Party itself. We recently had the Farm Bill, for instance, on the floor of the House that the Speaker put on the House floor, and 60 members of the Republican Party voted against that bill, including chairs of standing committees, which would be unheard of. Really, it rarely has ever happened before. I can't, in my 15 years, can never remember that ever happening before. And I think that really shows the level of dysfunctionality that exists within Congress right now. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how they fix their problems. I hope they do, because we need to get back to working on behalf of the people of the country, regardless of political persuasion and regardless of regionality. Rural, urban, suburban needs to be working together to help move this country forward.
What are your not pet issues, but your passion? What are you trying to get through and accomplish in Congress for your constituency?
Well, I think a number of things. Immigration reform would probably be number one on my list right now. I've been working on the issue for the past 15 years, ever since I've been in Congress, recognizing the need for comprehensive reform. Back then, we thought we were well on our way until 9/11 happened, and that took it off track. My hope is that somehow we can get this back on track now and get it passed in this session. I think it makes it much more difficult to get it done in an election year next year. So my hope is that we get that accomplished now. I'm also working on tax reform. I think a tax code is broken. It's overly complicated. It's inefficient, and I think in many respects it's unfair. And we need to really bring about comprehensive and fair tax reform for this country.
I think a loved one of yours that was a firefighter passed away in 9/11. Let's talk about global terrorism a little bit, and from that point forward, moving forward, what has been your take on our role in the Middle East and Iraq, Afghanistan, the question of Iran, and now Syria?
Mm-hmm. Look, these are some of the most trying times in our country's history. I had a first cousin who was killed. He was a battalion chief. His name was John Moran. On 9/11, the father of two fine young men now. They were boys back then. So I know some of the pain that many have felt through the loss of a loved one because of a terrorist act. I think every day, just about every day, about my cousin John. And we were great friends, too. Aside from being blood relatives, we were very, very close. But again, at the same time, can't let that one isolated incident distract me from what we have to do as a country to move forward. I do believe the wind down in Iraq and Afghanistan is good for our country. I think the country is a bit war fatigued. I think they're concerned about what's happening in Syria, and at the same time, we have to really grapple with what do we do as a nation when a rogue state like Syria uses chemical weapons against its own people. And what is the world doing about it? So I think that's the debate that's going to take place this week. We'll have more information, I think, coming out to the public as well as we move forward. But it's a very troubled part of the world. And Iran, its quest for nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction, I think, is wrong. And we should be trying to limit and end access to that for all countries. I'd like the United States to continue its degrading of nuclear weapons as well, along with Russia and the other established states that have these weapons. It's in our nation's interest to try to work towards a political solution in these regions as well, and secure the safety of the state of Israel. Continue to do that. I think it's important, vitally important to the interests of our country to do that as well. So we have a lot of work cut out for us, and it's not going to get necessarily better overnight, but I think eventually we'll get to a solution.
Well, we love you guys up in New York, here in South Texas. And any last words for the constituents down here watching us, Philemon Velas constituents, and for yours back home?
Well, for one, I'd say that you have a great new member of Congress in Phil. He's just a wonderful guy. I had the opportunity to do a little fishing here, not with Phil, but a cousin of his and a friend. I said yesterday at the event, show me a person's friends, and that tells me a lot about the person himself. And I really enjoyed myself and the camaraderie and the talks we had, political, policy, and just having a good time. And what a beautiful, beautiful part of the country and the part of the world. This is just absolutely my first time in South Padre Island, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. And I'm going to come back here with my family. So from my constituency point of view, I'm going to tell my constituents how great this place is.
All right. Well, and thank you so much, United States Congressman from New York, Joe Crowley. Thank you so much for coming by. All right, we're going to take a brief break, and we're going to have more congressmen, United States congressmen, when we come back. Hi, this is attorney and board-certified nurse practitioner Joe Flores on behalf of Vasquez Flores Home Health. Nursing homes have their place, but having care in your own home is very important. Call today for more information. Backed by over 20 years of experience, registered nurse Priscilla Vasquez can answer your questions about home care. Call 881-9922. That's 881-9922 today. And we're back after a brief break. You're watching South Texas Crossfire with your host, Attorney Joe Flores, and with me, I have the distinct pleasure once again of we're doing a series of interviews with United States Congressmen, and I give you District 23 here in Texas, your congressman from El Paso to San Antonio, Congressman Gallegos. How are you?
Oh, hey,
good morning.
I'm good. Thank you.
Well, listen, for those of us out there in South Texas that don't know much about your area, tell us a little bit about your district.
Well, the district is the largest in Texas. If you're looking at a map of Texas, it's just under about 24%, nearly a quarter of the state, by land from El Paso to San Antonio. So I'm from Alpine, but Del Rio, Eagle Pass, all of that part of the world, all the way up to San Antonio. So it's a wonderful district.
Well, tell us a little bit about your education, training background, your family, how you grew up. Try to give us a flavor about your boyhood.
Sure. Well, I'm from Alpine. My family had a restaurant in Alpine from 1917 through 1997 for 80 years. So I grew up in the restaurant business, lavando trastes. I watched. They didn't let me in the behind the stove too much because my dad wanted people to come back to the restaurant. So I didn't get to cook too much, but the mesero, waiting on tables, and went to Saul Ross there in Alpine, and then went to UT for law school. Was elected to the legislature from that part of the world and served in the state house for 22 years, and now as of January I'm a member of Congress, which it's interesting. It's the only competitive seat in all of Texas that's competitive between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's the only one. In the last 20 years, this district has had 5 congressmen. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting November for me.
Well, anyway, we can help there in South Texas with you, but
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you and Filemon Vela have started out together then in this great journey representing people. Why are you down here in South Padre Island? And you look great, by the way. I'm having to do the
Island
suit.
casual.
Yeah, but it's Saturday morning, and he got up early on Saturday morning to do this interview. We really appreciate it. What are you guys doing down here?
Well, there's a whole series of things. Congressman Vela wanted to invite a lot of the members of Congress down to make sure they got to know the area and would be essentially cognizant of some of the challenges that the area faces, so that we can all help and we can all pitch in and we can all make sure that that we understand the issues. So there's a bunch of members of Congress that are here at his invitation. Congressman Vela and I are close friends. We served together on the Agriculture Committee. So when he asked me to come down here, I, like the other members of Congress, said, sure, absolutely.
Well, and you're looking at, agriculture. Let's zone in on that for a moment. We've got a lot of farming and ranching down there. Tell us the similarities, maybe a little differences between your area and Congressman Vela's here in South Texas, and the commonalities, what you all are trying to accomplish for farmers and ranchers.
Well, two of the major areas, the district that I represent has more border than any other district in the country. It's over a third of the entire U.S.-Mexico border. So because he's from Brownsville and on the border and represents border counties, and because I represent border counties as well, that binds us together a lot on things like immigration and those kinds of things, the conversations that we have about the U.S. relationship with Mexico. Particularly recently, he has taken the lead and done a great job of essentially advocating our interests on water and making sure that Mexico keeps current with its water debt and those kinds of things, where he's been phenomenal in his leadership. The other areas where we have similarities is, as you mentioned, the agriculture industry itself, because for my part of the world, we grow all sorts of things out from cotton to pecans to just about any other crop. And I know that here in the Valley, it's certainly its history is an agrarian history. So there's a lot of things that, and plus la cultura. And we have so much in common in terms of the culture and the heritage. So there's a lot of commonalities between Congressman Vela's district and the district that I represent.
Well, and when we're looking at oil and gas exploration, I know that's a big issue here in Texas. What about your area?
Well, I happen to represent the lion's share of what's called Eagle Ford Shale. So that is the premier area right now. And it is completely exploded the regional economy on I-35 from Laredo up to San Antonio and on over to Eagle Pass. It's a huge thing. I also represent the Permian Basin area, a lot of the counties out there that have traditionally been the leaders in oil and gas production in Texas. So oil and gas is something that I'm very familiar with, and I know that Congressman Vela is as well.
Well, in transitioning towards some of those issues that are at foremost importance right now, I know that the relations with the Middle East, that is also affecting oil and gas and everything else, but also what about what's going on right now in the Middle East? What are your views?
Well, it's a very unstable area, and it has been unstable for a very long time. And frankly, that instability is a reason why we should do a better job on the U.S. side of making sure that we essentially take care of our own resources, not only in terms of efficiencies and those kinds of things, but in terms of developing our industry. If we could start exporting natural gas, for example, the U.S. would be one of the leading exporters. And frankly, that would be great for Texas, because there's not another state in the union that has more natural gas reserves than Texas does. So while the instability in the Middle East certainly poses significant challenges for the U.S., there's a way around them for us locally if we can just develop our own infrastructure and grow our own industries.
And when we're talking about issues that really impact your area and that are, in your heart, that you're really advocating for up there in Washington, can you kind of list a couple of those major issues?
I think the industries that we have are not so unusual in so many places, and the challenges that we face are not so unusual, and so the goals that we have. Everybody wants a better education for their kids. As a father of an 8-year-old, that's a huge thing, is making sure that our kids have opportunity. Jobs and the economy. We need to make sure that as these kids are coming out of school and as these kids are coming out of college, that there are jobs to go to, and so that we continue to grow the economy and frankly the challenges that the middle class has faced, because I can't tell you how many people I've met over the last few months that will tell me in financial aid for college, for example, they will say, well, I make too much money, my kids can't get financial aid. And I know those guys, and they don't make too much money. And so there's a lot of programs that may help the people on the lower end of the scale, and the people on the higher end of the scale don't necessarily need any help, but everybody in the middle is getting squeezed, and everybody in the middle, well, that's something that Congressman Vela and I also have in common, is that we worry significantly about preserving and protecting and even growing the middle class in the American economy today.
Well, I know physicians, nurses, I myself am in the healthcare field, we're stakeholders. So when I came up over here, people said, please, when you're meeting with a lot of the congressmen there in South Padre Island, please ask them about their views on the Affordable Care Act and the rollout in October and what we anticipate January beyond. What are your views on that?
Well, I'm a little frustrated with Washington on the issue of health care, because it shouldn't be an all or nothing thing. I can't tell you how many times whether it's in English or Spanish, to tell you, something is better than nothing, or half a loaf is better than none, or whatever it is. So one of the things with the Affordable Care Act that is frustrating is that in Washington, between the Democrats and the Republicans want an all or nothing system, and they want nothing. And many times the Democrats want all, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. There's some things about the Affordable Care Act, the fact that you can leave your kids on your health insurance, until they're 26, that's a big deal. The fact that there's no more pre-existing conditions ever again, that's a big deal. The fact that for the first time ever, men and women, you can't discriminate in terms of the pricing, so that right now men's health insurance for men is cheaper than health insurance for women. Well, that's going to change. Those kinds of things. The fact that your insurance is now portable, and so that you're not stuck at a dead-end job forever because that's the only place that you can get health insurance. Those things are important. Oh, and the last thing for me that's really important is that Texas and California lead the nation in the number of people who are getting refunds under the Affordable Care Act, because if you're paying premiums right now, then under this law, 80 to 85% of the money that the insurance company takes in for healthcare, they have to spend it on healthcare. And because many of the Texas companies were not spending it on healthcare, people in Texas are getting more refunds than any other state in the country besides California. So those are some pretty significant things that I want to keep. Now, are there some challenges with the Affordable Care Act? Absolutely. And I think we need to fix what's broken, and I think we need to leave what works alone.
Well, I'm legendary for talking too much, so I'm going to leave the floor for you, for your constituents. We want to make a postcard for all your constituents out there, and we want them to also watch this. We're going to be posting it on YouTube. And also in South Texas, it's an honor to introduce you to all our viewers out there, the 300,000 strong and growing. So we'd like for you to say a few words to your constituents and to the people down there, primarily Latinos that watch our viewers, but also our Anglo and Black and Asian brothers. So colors bleed into one. So with the last few minutes we have, take it away.
Well, I would say that es un privilegio muy grande. It's a huge privilege, something that I never, we all think about winning the lottery, but it never really happens to us. That's how I feel about being a member of Congress. I mean, it's just, it is an incredible dream come true for me. And every day I work on behalf of the people of the 23rd District. It's a wonderful area, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope I get the opportunity to continue to serve in. I'm also very, very grateful to the people of this area. Congressman Bella does a wonderful job for them, and it's such a beautiful area of the state. It's not an area that I've spent a lot of time in. I've come here occasionally, but certainly over the last couple of days, the beauty and the potential of this area has shined through.
Well, thank you. Congressman Gallegos, and you know him from El Paso all the way to San Antonio. We're going to take a brief break here on KTMB, but we thank him. District 23, United States Congressman from El Paso to San Antonio. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we're back after a brief break. South Texas Crossfire, your host, Attorney Joe Flores, right here on KTMV, the only station with political teeth. And we're on here with a great opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you a congressman very near and dear our hearts, or he should be, from Arizona, Tucson, and that is Congressman Grijalba, United States Congressman for Arizona. How are you?
Very well, Counsel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you on, and I always like to see Latinos that are United States congressmen representing, what would you say, as of recently, a controversial area because of the border. Tell me your take, and what's the real deal on immigration?
Well, this has been, as you well know, one of the most difficult and delicate situations that we face, but for the borderlands, and that's why I'm here with Congressman Vela and my other colleagues. The borderlands are most affected by it, and I represent a big chunk of the border in Arizona, and Arizona's been at the point of the spear. Everything from a very horrible local laws to an enforcement strategy that is intense. Some people categorize it as militarized along that border. And so as we go forward with comprehensive reform, we can't forget what the borderlands bring to this country. Jobs, trade, commerce, and we believe that economic security is part of the security package. And so we're here to emphasize that point, and very happy to be here again in South Texas. I think the biggest issue facing us is to get away from the stereotype and the myths, that immigrants and the immigrant community is somehow a threat through this nation, that we're here to take something away. Al contrario, we're here to contribute, like every other immigrant wave in this country, make the country richer, stronger, and more secure.
And what is your view on the 14 million people that are already here, estimated or more, and that are here? I mean, is deportation the answer, or comprehensive immigration reform for those?
There's only one way to go. I mean, despite what people have said in the past about self-deportation, we've seen that that's a policy that's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to work, and in no way is this country going to size up and try to deport 11 to 12 million people. That's not going to happen. So we need a process for legalization. We need a process that's fair, that gives people the opportunity at the end of the day to become United States citizens, that unifies families, and that has a secure border that includes the economy. That's comprehensive reform. And for us to think that people are going to disappear, that we're going to force them out, is just going to drive people deeper and deeper into the shadows, deeper and deeper into a second-class economy. And so this is an opportunity with comprehensive immigration reform to turn the clock forward and do it right.
Well, and I had a opportunity to interview a Mexican official who told me las dos cosas más absurdas aquí son que en Estados Unidos dicen que ya no traen laboreros, que ya no traen drogas, pero la necesidad para los dos no va a cambiar. So he was saying you ought to legalize certain aspects or decriminalize, but the use of labor and drugs, I mean, there is a need in the United States. There's a desire for that. So people saying that we don't want that. What's your take on that?
If you believe in all of us do in the free market, it's supply and demand. And the demands for drugs is in this country. And the suppliers, unfortunately, happen to be the cartels on the other side. That is a security target we have to undertake. We have to quit putting so many people in prison on minor, non-violent drug charges and look at rehabilitation and look at other ways. We also have to understand that Mexico is our first trading partner with this country. And instead of putting up barriers and making it more difficult to enhance and grow that trade, we should be about a strategy that unifies us even more. I really believe that if we look at the situation right now and take a snapshot of where we are, we could be doing something with comprehensive reform that is truly going to look at the long term. And I think the long-term solution is going to be the economic well-being in Mexico and the economic well-being here. And that is tied to trade, jobs, and commerce.
And transitioning to the economy, we've got a couple of minutes before our break, but we're talking about the healthcare reform and the Affordable Care Act. What do you anticipate on those issues?
For our community, for the Latino community that have almost 30 to 35% of our folks are uninsured, this is the time to register, to become part of the exchange, and to insure like a third of our community that has no health coverage at all. I see it as an opportunity for our community, since we're the largest proportionally uninsured population in this country.
Well, Congressman, I know you have to go, but for your constituents out there, the mic is all yours. What would you like to say? Because we're going to be loading this up on YouTube, as well as thank you for saying hi to everybody down in Corpus and surrounding areas. What would you like to say to your constituents over there in Arizona near Tucson?
That there's more things the same than different. That the issues that are being confronted down here in South Texas with immigration, with the economy, with the comprehensive immigration reform process, and potential to get that done, are the same as they are in Arizona. We're confronting the same problems, and I think because of the Border Caucus and the leadership of members of Congress from South Texas, particularly Mr. Vela, we've been able to revitalize that, and now beginning to look at what unifies us along the border as opposed to what divides us.
And you've been listening to United States Congressman Grijalba from Tucson, District 3, United States Congressman all the way from Arizona. I want to thank you for coming down to South.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back after this break.